everyone, and welcome to Joyful Homemaking Podcast. I am your host with my co-host, Marissa. And, we are co-hosts together. I feel like I put that in an odd way. And don't worry, she's here. I know you usually see her face first, but she is here, and we are going to do this together. And I messaged her with an idea this past week, and she just had to read it back to me because I forgot what it was. So I wrote it down now too. And I have so many thoughts about this topic. Did I write an outline as Marissa always does in such an organized way? No. Do I have Bible verses in mind, but I don't know their references? Yes. So we are going to talk about this, and I think it will be a very fruitful conversation. So my topic that I sent her is pouring out our lives biblically in a culture of self-preservation. She added the biblically, but I think that's a good touch, of course, because we want everything to be biblically minded in our lives. And so this is a topic that I feel we could probably nuance and have disclaimers for the entire time, but we're not going to do that. We know that women are busy. We know that there's a lot of women working really hard out there, but I think it can be hard to work hard in a culture that is constantly telling you, just preserve yourself, just think of yourself, I don't know. Anyway, so that is what we will be discussing today. So Marissa, any initial thoughts before we kind of dive in?
I think it is a great topic to talk about because one, it is so countercultural. All we hear is self-love, put yourself first. I just heard someone say an argument the other day, like for years, I've heard this quote, put the mask on yourself. Like if you're in an airplane crash, put your own mask on first before you put everybody else's mask on. And, like when I hear their arguments, I'm like, yeah, because you could die, right? And then you can't help anyone if you're dead. But then I married a nurse. He talked to me a lot about this word about triage, like you are to triage the situation. Maybe you can hold your breath a little longer, but your infant can't. So you put, you know what I mean? Like, and again, we'll get into that more, but it's kind of like you hear these catchphrases, put yourself first, make sure you have a full cup to, give from, make sure that, you can't love others unless you love yourself first, all these things, right? And you probably are just in your mind right now, Ashley, thinking of all these other comments or quotes that you hear. And I really do feel like it is time to mix up that message and bring it back to that biblical worldview, which is why we put biblical in, because being biblical minded is countercultural to today.
Yes. And you said it so beautifully. And it's true. It's just bombarded, and I don't think we even notice it anymore. But like, just look at, I don't know, go into a store and look at like the throw pillows. Look at the titles of the books in any kind of self-help section. It's just marketed particularly to women of care for yourself, put yourself first, spend money on the things that will help you and say no to everything else. And like you said, it's the opposite of what the Bible tells us to do, right? And so, I just think about all the different phases in life, and I think about how often, like, it's easy. So we think about right before you get married is just sort of naturally in the flow of life. That's just a very selfish time in life, because like for my husband and I, for example, we're in college. Well, what is college about? College is all about what you want to do. It's about your career. It's about setting up your life. It's about what you find interesting to study. And again, okay, all the nuances and disclaimers, there's not overarching. I'm not saying if you go to college, you're being selfish. That's not what I'm talking about, but it is just a very selfish time in life. Or even if you have graduated high school, maybe you're working full time, you meet somebody and you're gonna, you're settling down, whatever it may be, it's really hard to think about self-sacrifice is not really a thing that you're in a mindset of doing necessarily. And so the first, I think, sort of shockwave, I guess I would call it, would be self-sacrifice in your marriage and laying your life down for your spouse. And of course, we talk a lot about that on this podcast. We talk a lot about how we are the helpmeet, how that is our role. And I do think for women, like before you have kids, if you can't figure out pouring your life out for your husband, then once you have kids and maybe the Lord convicts you of that and you're suddenly realizing I need to pour out my life for all these people, it is going to be a lot more difficult, right? And we see it in the big things, but it's so often just practicing and building up that muscle in the little things that will then help you to be able to sacrifice and make those, and pour out your life in the big things. And so this is just sort of like a broad overview of, I think, what we're going to be talking about. But, I think about just physically laying your life down. Like, what is childbirth and carrying a baby, if not just physically laying your life down? And I have heard, I knew a girl a long time ago who said she just couldn't imagine doing that to her body or letting that happen to her body, like the process of pregnancy and birth, and she wasn't willing to. And I was like, if you are not willing to do, like, I don't even think adoption would be a good idea, because if you can't lay down your body, you're not going to be able to lay down your entire life, which is actually what motherhood is all about. Anyhow, those are just initial broad overview thoughts. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
You are so spot on. And I love that you brought up, like, it starts in the beginning. Actually, it starts before you get married, in your upbringing alone too. It gives you the opportunity to be part of a family, to think of others. And then you go out on your own and you have the opportunity to serve, like in a church setting. And then you get married and you're like, wow, I am laying down my life or laying down myself to serve and be part of this new team with my husband. And then you have kids and it just blows up like astronomically. And then it finds itself into every aspect of life. It's not just for marriage and parenting. It's for the Christian life because, our example is Christ. And literally it says that Jesus emptied himself, right? Like he emptied himself to become a servant and to be humbly put himself to the point of death on a cross. And in a culture that we prioritize self-preservation so much, we're called as Christians to imitate Christ. And that is putting others before ourselves. I was just, when you were telling the story, I was thinking about before I got married, before I was even engaged, I worked at Eddie Bauer, that place, Eddie Bauer at the mall, at the outlet mall. And I worked with a newly married lady, and we were, folding the clothes and making it look all nice. And it was a slow time. And she was telling me that she wakes up every morning at 5 a.m. to get up with her husband, who has to be at work at 6. And I'm like, and I am young, immature, college age. I'm like, does 5 a.m. exist? I mean, like, why would you wake up at 5? That's ridiculous. He can get himself his own breakfast. Totally, the Lord has worked on me a lot. But it was a shock statement where she wanted to prioritize serving her husband by waking up. Like Eddie Bauer didn't even open until like 10 a.m. Like she didn't need to be there until like 9 at the earliest. She could have slept in. She could have made herself coffee and, did all her things before she went to work. But she woke up way before she needed to, made breakfast, had coffee, got to be together with her husband before he went to work for the day. And in my college age, that was mind-blowing. And I think that is kind of the pitfall of being a self-care mindset, is that you don't think of the other person, right? You don't think to serve, you think to be served. Now let's fast forward, 20 years. And I attended a church where several people that had come to that church had told me, well, I left my last church because they weren't feeding me. I wasn't being fed. And oh no, Ashley, I mean, we're going to get canceled real fast. Sorry, girl. But like, it's that attitude of like, what about me? What is it doing for me? What is the church doing for me? What is my marriage doing for me? What is my parenting doing for me? It starts so young and it carries forward. You think that you've arrived because you got married and you had kids, and now you've experienced what being, sacrificing your body maybe looks like. But it's a mindset game, like it's an internal problem that we are faced with.
Yes. Yeah. And I think when we think about like, okay, so I need to be training my children up so that they are the type of people that when they get married, that they know they can serve, that they can lay their life down. And how do we do that? Well, we model it. And it's like, well, but that doesn't come naturally. And so that's why, like, we have to rely on the Holy Spirit. We're not going to be able to do that on our own strength. We have to be in the Word. We have to be praying. And I know that we talk about these things a lot, but I just feel like it's so important to remember, like, this is not our own strength that we are going to be able to do this on. Like, you lay your life down for the people that God has given you because you're modeling what He did for you and you're doing it in His strength. And and I do think, okay, when we think about like sort of the self-preservation. So first of all, one thing that I can never understand is like, there's all the like, I have to really be careful of my time, and I really need, and I always just wonder, like, to what end? Like, for what? Like, do you really need to paint your toenails? Like, are you worried? I just can't. I'm like, why would we preserve ourselves? Like, the God gave us time. He gave us bodies. He gave us resources for what? To be used. Like, go spend those talents. Don't just sit on them. At the end of our lives, our bodies should have been poured out like drink offerings. Like, our resources, our time, everything. Like, that is what we're here for, is to glorify Him. And so when we think we need to preserve, we need to be careful with our time and really careful with our resources. And again, we could nuance this to death and talk about not being, unwise. But when I think about how people, maybe you don't want to open your home up to hospitality because food costs money and because things get dirty. And it's like, well, guess what that's here for? Like, it's going to get used. It's going to get dirty. It's going to get like, this is what God has given us these things for. This is what God has given us these bodies and this time for. And I do think when we ask to what end, we could flip that around too. And we could talk about rest. And I know we've talked about rest on this podcast before, and I've probably gotten on my soapbox about Sabbath rest. But I think, again, we have to ask, like, to what end? Because I'm not saying that there's not a time to rest. I think there are, and there's definitely seasons in life. But it is, why are we resting? How were we resting? To what end? Is it because maybe sickness has gone through our family for like a long time, and we just need to clear our schedules and take some time to like get everything back in order? But like, we're doing that so that when we hit the ground running again, like, we can get right back into serving Him, right back into doing all of the things that we were doing before. And I think it's just important to think about what are we filling our time with? And then when we're purposefully not filling our time, why is that? So anyway, any initial thoughts on that?
What a great question to say, to what end, as it can totally be a snowball effect in that when I've heard a lot of verbiage, I maybe have said this verbiage before too. So this is not like, calling anyone specifically out, calling myself out. Really is, I need this to feel this way, like, I need to sleep in. I will call myself out. I have said multiple times, I need 8 hours of sleep. But do you really need 8 hours of sleep? Like, are you then depending on your own strength or on the strength that the Lord has given you? It says for us to deny ourselves daily, right? Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. So where is that reliance lying? Is it lying on what I need to do so that I can be successful? To what standard? To what ends? Just like you said, or am I pouring out myself as Jesus emptied Himself? Like, are we picking up our cross of selfish self-preservation and are we walking out that? So I say this again, preaching to myself, that there is a mindset, and I keep bringing that up, mindset, because I feel like it's an internal thought process that tells you what you think you need or what you need to do. So how do you get rid of that mindset? How do you get rid of that worldly mindset? Well, you get in the word, like you said, you get in the word and you model your life after Christ and see what he is showing us in his word. If we look to again, you mentioned like magazines, blogs, reels, all these things, we see that the world is not going to have that standard. So if that's where we're looking to for self-help, we are definitely looking in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think my goodness, sorry, there's a huge hailstorm and you're propped up right against a window. So sorry, I hope it doesn't get loud. But I think when we think about, okay, just calling ourselves out and like prioritizing the good things versus, like the things that are maybe necessary or are the things that God calls us to versus the things that we don't necessarily need. Like you're saying, the 8 hours. And again, I think this could become the most unpopular podcast ever because people are like, what? I need 8 hours. And I understand. But if you are going to have babies, guess what? You're not going to get 8 hours of sleep. You're going to have years where you don't remember sleeping at all. Like you're just like, I don't think that happened, but I don't recall. I'm pretty sure in 2010, like I don't remember James sleeping. Like I literally don't, like just never slept. And so, and then of course, 3 babies after that too. And it was just a lot of time. And you've had much longer than that, than I have, that you just have never slept for 8 hours or any period of time straight. And we can laugh about this though. We can have joy and all of that's the thing about like the magazines and the articles. They're always like, why you're going to get all these diseases and this and that and this and that if you don't get your 8 hours. And you're like, so you're basically telling people don't have babies because that's the only way to not get in, or to not be busy with the good things of the Lord. I routinely don't get 8 hours of sleep because I have so many things to do. I'm up late making food and doing dishes and up early. But I think to get back to what I was originally going to say, when I think about like, there can be 2 things that seem similar, but one of them the Lord has actually called you to do because you have to. One of them is just selfish self-preservation. So I think about, and again, I could nuance this to death. I don't think there's anything wrong with going to the gym, but there was a time in my life where that gym time was an idol for me. I had to be in the gym every day. And why? Because I was concerned about the way I looked. Let's be honest, like that was truly it. And I told myself all the lies about all the reasons I was going to the gym, but I know very well why I was going to the gym. Now I have to get up and do back exercises. And that is because if I don't get up and do my back exercises in the morning, like I'm like an old lady trying to walk around and do my chores and get my dishes done and all the things. So one of them is like, literally must do this to serve my family. And the other one is I am serving myself. I am serving my own body, my own self-preservation, my own desires over God wants me to get up and do these back exercises because that's how I can serve him and serve my family. And I just think they might kind of look the same. I'm exercising sort of in both capacities, but one of them is obedient exercise, one of them is disobedient exercise. So again, nothing wrong with going to the gym, but where is your heart at? To what end are you doing these things? And I think also when people might look at your life or my life, we have so much going on. Like we are just taking things on and we're planning things and we're doing things and we're trying to bless people and we're trying to do all the good work that the Lord has called us to. And there was a time in my life, and I'm assuming you can say the same, where I did not have the capacity for this. Like when I had all littles and I was home trying to figure out how to just get laundry done with 4 little kids at home or, whatever it was, like my capacity was totally different. And the Lord has continued to enlarge my capacity. I mean, and for me also, my kids are getting older. You just keep having babies, which is so fun. But yet God just keeps giving you more wonderful ways to serve him too. But I just think about like things like the formal or things I'm planning for children's ministry or doing VBS or like all these things that seem like a lot of extra things. I'm taking these on because I know, and not just taking them on, like coming up with them and being like, you know what we ought to do? We should do this thing because I think it would bless the kids. But these are the things God wants us to do. He wants us to put the things on our schedule that are for him, that are going to bless him, that may look to the world like we're just, adding things to the calendar for no reason. But I just think it's so important to think like, okay, we're building Christian culture here. We are building the kingdom. Like what does that look like? And how do we live that out? And so that's obviously very different than building your own personal kingdom and living that out. So that was a lot of words I just said. Any thoughts on that, Marissa?
I think it's beautiful what you said. And it is motherhood and marriage is kingdom work.
Mm-hmm.
We are building a kingdom not unto ourselves, but for the glory of God. And I wrote a couple just quick practical ways in my mind that be living out biblically in a culture of self-preservation. And the first one kind of, we have talked about rest again, like hear us when we say these things are not to discount some of the other, biblical wisdom that we've talked about, but just to think about and to evaluate your schedule and to see where you are, who you are living for, right? But the first one is to give sacrificially. And that is time and resources and encouragement to have that thought of others first. And that could be your family. It could be a lot of, and that leads into this next one, serve your family, serve your church, serve your community selflessly. Serving is not necessarily the word that people like to put on their job description. I am a servant. No, people do not say that. People in the Bible talks about, being a slave to Christ. I mean, that word has definitely gotten corrupted here in America, but that is kind of the mindset that, and the picture of you don't belong to yourself. You belong to God. And so your work is for him, not for your own kingdom. Another one, I thought that we need to, in order to live in an anti-self-preservation state, we need to share the gospel boldly despite opposition. And that's hard to do when we live in a culture that opposes what we believe, that blatantly, verbally, abusively opposes what we believe. But we need to stand firm in that truth. We need to embrace suffering. We need to embrace suffering and inconvenience for Christ's sake. I do not like to be inconvenienced. Let me tell you, I have a schedule before we started this podcast. I told Ashley all the things I need to do after this podcast because, we share that my husband was laid off. He's doing some extra work today to try to make up for financially for our family. And that, has been an inconvenience to me in my schedule today. And I can choose to live out that inconvenience in a woe is me state, or I can buckle down, pull up my bootstraps and rely on the Lord to give me the joy of this life, the joy of motherhood, the joy of my schedule. And that is definitely something we can all embrace in seasons more than others. The last one I said for practical is to prioritize the eternal. Prioritize having an eternal mindset over this temporary security that we think we need or have here in this life. It says, that we're here for about a mist of time, right? Like a dawn. And that's all we're here for. And so what do we need to do with that time? That comment, that verse is not to make us be like, well, better not do anything, like I don't even matter in the grand scheme of things. No, you do matter. And you were created for such a time as this to be the mom or to be the wife to the people in your family. And we are to do everything that we do unto the glory of the Lord because he has a master plan, right? And he graciously uses us to fulfill his means, to accomplish his ends. And I think that we can feel like an ant getting squished on the sidewalk, but no, we are a mighty ant. Have you seen what ants can do? I was just talking to my kids about that. The verse in Proverbs, go to the ants. Like, they're valuable. They're extremely strong, and they serve a purpose for the community. They are not individualistic, right? So be like an ant. That was a tangent.
I love that you just got really excited about ants. That was so great. You can tell a homeschool mom who's like, let's talk for a minute about ants. Knowing you, it's not like you love ants. It's not like you have a little ant farm in your room or something.
No.
But anyway, to take another metaphor that you use, which I think is just, obviously you used it, but it's biblical, is the mist, right? You're just a mist. But if you think about that, like you were saying, like that, like if you just squirt something and it's gone like that. Well, what if every Christian woman truly was like, okay, I am a mist, but I'm going to pour everything into this mist. Like, what if we all did that? Like, that could be like a tsunami rainstorm, like that could be something really powerful that does, like we're talking about, build the kingdom. And so, but you have to, hence this podcast, like women everywhere have to be doing these things. Like we have to be pouring our lives out for the gospel, for our families, for our church. And again, I know that's just really, like we've been saying, countercultural. It's unpopular. People don't want to do it. But I loved your list. And I think, like, even if we were to put like even more flesh on it, about what does that look like? Like, okay, you think about in your own family, like for your husband, what does that look like? Well, it could be, that's really small and really big. We've talked a lot about husbands and wives and submitting, and you just think about, for me, it's little things, but they add up to a lot of big things, right? Like every night staying up late and getting the coffee ready and making his lunch. And like to him, that's a big deal. And sometimes it's bigger things too that he needs, but just meeting his needs, right? For our children, what does that look like? Well, again, unpopular sometimes, but like raising them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, that means that you're using your resources to send them to a good Christian school. It means that you're using your resources and your time to homeschool them. And we've talked a lot about education too. And again, so many disclaimers we could say. I understand that there's all sorts of circumstances, but this life is to pour out. This life is not to be preserved. And I just think, I think that we need to keep that in mind.
I love your thoughts. And I love that you brought up marriage, because within the home structure, that is truly where we need to start. We need to evaluate how are we pouring out to our husbands? Because we are that team, right? That is then pouring into our children. And in a marriage context, in this world mindset, it is, what are they doing for me? Where we need to view it as, what are we doing for them, without any expectation of anything in return. And I think that can go in a lot of elements of marriage. Personally, I've struggled in different seasons about wanting to be intimate with my husband, not because I don't love him, but maybe because I've had children and been pregnant or breastfeeding for the last 12 years of my life. And let me tell you, there's babies on me all day, and it's hard to want to be touched again. Right? Man, I'm sorry. Right? But in that moment, that when I say, I just don't want to be touched again, what word, what pronoun came out first? I, me. What do I want? What do I don't want? What do I need? What do I don't need? And instead, I really had to tell myself, this is not about you. This is not for you. And then the Lord is gracious, so gracious, because then when I do decide to engage, whether that is in a physical intimacy, whether that is in like a conversation or emotional needs being filled, whether that's physical, making coffee, those type of things, the Lord is so gracious to give to me what I did not plan or expect to be given. I have a friend. She says, and this is probably TMI, so who cares? We're all ladies here, right? She
Men,
says,
get off the podcast.
men, this is not for you.
Stop listening.
She says, I view intimacy with my husband like cleaning the bathroom. I'm like, what? She says, I don't want to clean the bathroom. I don't like cleaning the bathroom before I get started. But then once I get started, I'm so happy I cleaned that bathroom. And for the next week, I love the way my bathroom looks. I just am so blessed with my bathroom. And so now, remember that bathroom metaphor.
Cleaning the bathroom the same way. Goodness. But yes, it's so true. And that, I think that is also what you're getting to, is also like the heart of everything. Why does God ask us to serve? Why does God ask us to lay our lives down? Because in that is blessing. Like that, in fact, is his plan, because he knows what's best for us. And what's best for us is actually pouring our lives out for other people, even in the moment, if it feels like there's so many other things you'd rather be doing. Or maybe you just, like you're just tired, or you're just feeling like this is what God has for you because it's the best for you. And I remember,
and you brought up,
sorry, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, you said it earlier too. You said when we try to fill our own cups, when we try to fill our own needs, you said to what ends? It never is filled. It's never fulfilled with the true joy that the Lord gives you, like when you pour out. You're so spot on, Ash.
Yeah. I don't think we have like an epidemic of Christian women just like sitting around picking their toes and watching Netflix all day or something. I'm not saying that Christian women as a whole are not working hard. This is more like an encouragement to keep going. Like, continue in your good works, because it is exhausting, but this is what the Lord has for you. And this past weekend we had the formal, and I'm driving back to the church, and back and forth, and I'm exhausted, and there's just like so much on my mind, and there's so much I have to do. And it's like, you're just going. And I knew also like there's going to be a lot of fallout and repercussion, like afterward, getting my home back in order, doing all the things. Like I had to like spiritually prepare myself for the fact that like my family was still going to be hungry the next day, even though I'd been doing nothing but cooking and preparing, like it's like you have to just kind of think ahead. But I was listening. Don't ask me who the artist is. We started singing it. We sang it in church. And so I've been singing it, or I have it on a playlist, and it's the song. Okay. It goes to the tune of, and I'm going to forget, it's not in English, the first song, but it's, should nothing of our efforts stand, no legacy survive. Do you know the one I'm talking about? Unless the Lord doth build the house. I think that's how it goes. Yeah. In vain its builders strive, which obviously is biblical, right? Like we are striving in vain if we're trying to build our own house. And it was like, I mean, I knew that, but it was just such a sweet reminder, like as I'm just by myself in the car, so singing it loudly and just like, Lord, this whole thing is for you. Like this whole formal is just to bring you glory. And just praying over the whole thing and thinking about that for all of the people that came and helped serve. And like, may we all just be there to serve others, to glorify you, like to bless these great kids. Anyway, and I just love that reminder of like, we can actually be striving and working, but unless it's for God, like there's, we're not, anyway, unless it's for the Lord, we're not going to be able to accomplish anything. Like we will be, we won't have a legacy. I mean, just thinking of that like the idea of having no legacy, of just having like you die and like everything you've been doing, it just ends, rather than like you pouring your life out. And so whether or not anybody ever remembers you, like generations to come could be blessed by your faithfulness. And the idea of that is, I don't know, that's just really sweet to me. So something I was thinking about.
No, so sweet. We sing that song at church too. We just sang it not too long ago. What is it? All I have for Christ, or all I have is Christ, or I don't remember now. But yes.
No, I won't remember either. Anyway, but I do love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's to the tune that you sing at New Year's Eve.
No, I can't remember the name of it. Eleanor's been playing it on the piano too, but I can't think of.
It's a good song. It's a good song. I really like it. I think that I loved hearing about your banquet. I loved seeing the picture. You all can be jealous that you weren't at this banquet. It was so good.
So fun.
So have you recovered? What's been cooking at your house?
Lots of laundry. I realized yesterday we started the day. Judah had an orthodontist appointment, and he's like, the only pants I have are the sweats I slept in. And I'm like, well, guess you're going to your appointment in your sweatpants that you slept in. Sorry, because I got a little behind on laundry, which is fine. I feel like I'm just now finishing digging out the dishes that had, just accumulated. It was chaos, but it was great. Actually, Saturday morning, a friend stopped by to loan me something. Loaned me one of her crock pots or two of her I don't even know. I borrowed so many things. I'm still trying to get everybody's things back to them. I'm like, whose metal bowls are these? I don't know. And she came into my house and she looks around, and I don't have a very big kitchen. So the whole dining table is also prep area. Like, my kitchen is just like, there's layers of things happening. And she goes, so maybe next year you can delegate some more things. And I was like, why does this stress you out? Like, it was just like chaos. Anyway, but it was so fun. The kids loved the food. I'm so thankful. So, I mean, they ate it all, so I assume they liked it. But anyway, so it was great. But yeah, so as far as cooking, oh man, it's just another real full week of things, to the point that I realized I don't have anything that makes like a meal that makes sense right now. And I don't have time to go grocery shopping. So I just made a click list right before I hopped on this podcast with you, because we're at that. Yeah. Anyway, click list. I don't know if not every place has Fred Meyer, but it's a grocery pickup order, I guess I should say. So anyway, so I'm back to just, doing all the things, getting my meal plan ready and trying to do all the laundry and trying to get everybody to appointments. And anyway, it's all the good works that we are talking about. And also looking ahead to all the next projects I have going on. So praise the Lord, it doesn't end until we're dead, because who would want to be bored? I mean, really, So anyway, how about you?
That's so good. Well, two things come to mind. First, I'm redoing my blog, my Raising Rice's blog.
Ooh, okay.
I partnered with a local Christian gal here that does sweaters, like design. I launched Motherhood is my ministry.
Cute.
Reminder, it has Galatians 6:9 on it. Do not grow weary in doing what is right, for in due time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. And that's just totally what we're talking about today, is that verse, Galatians 6:9. So I just launched it on my website. I'm really excited because as Darren got laid off from work, I had like 6 ladies purchase this sweater, and it's like a twofer, right? It's like, that's blessing my family. Thank you, Lord. But that's also like, these women are standing on that, mission, that motherhood is their ministry, that they don't need to find fulfillment, if you will, in doing other ministries. But yet the heart of the home is so important. Now, does that mean you can't serve at your church? Absolutely not, but just not to forget your main ministry, if you are is motherhood. And so anyways, that was encouraging. And then another blessing of the Lord. So here in Southeast Idaho, where I live, there's a lot of LDS people that live here. And one of the friends I've gotten to know at church has left the LDS faith and moved to evangelical Christianity. And just to make sure I'm very clear, because sometimes LDS calls themselves Christians, but there is a difference between what we believe. And so so in the LDS faith, they believe that there is a trauma or something, natural disaster, something has come in, and they need to have food preservation. And she was just viewing, she has 2 storage rooms in her house filled with food. And she said to me, she's like, it's an idol. I'm viewing it as an idol where I thought I could do it on my own. Again, what we're talking about today, not relying on your own self, but relying on Christ to fulfill your needs. And she's like, I need to get rid of it. And I had just found out that Darren had lost his job. She's like, come take food. So, I mean, we have an NV 3500. It's that like toaster, huge van. We filled that van with food, and like, it's like amazing. Like, kamut, wheat berries, tons of canned things, rolled oats, noodles, like things that we cook with, like really actual real food. And I was like, Lord, thank you for that blessing.
Wow.
You know, those are a couple of things going on over here in the Rice family.
Well, that is amazing. That's so cool. What a sweet way for her to bless you guys. That's awesome.
And it was just living out the conviction that the Lord had given her. And so it was kind of like we were saying, when you give, the Lord gives to you, right? And so her blessing someone else, she was blessed too, and had this weight lifted off her that she, every time she looked in that storage closet, she was feeling the burden. And so not only did she said to me, she was like, I was about to throw it away. I'm like, don't throw it away. Me.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, that's awesome.
Crazy life.
That's
good
so
stuff.
Cool. Okay, we can link up the sweatshirts, right?
Yes.
In the show notes below. Isn't that what they always say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just hire a VA.
We'll put the link and people can copy and paste it into their browser or whatever, right? I don't know. So yeah, because that's so fun. I love it. I can't wait to see them.
Yay.
Yeah.
Good.
You should wear it next time on the podcast, maybe.
I should have worn it. I got so hot. I was wearing a different sweatshirt. I got so hot today.
I realized I had 2 different tops, and then I was like, oh no, I feel like I've already worn these on the podcast. Like, I was like, I need to start thinking about this and not just like showing up in the same sweater every time. But anyway, it's kind of funny.
If people are paying attention that much, then one, that's impressive. And 2, hopefully they're listening to what we say then.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, hopefully they're not so much noticing our outfits. But anyway, so great. Okay, well, I know you have lots of good work to get to.
Good work.
Yep, you got to go do things with cars, buy some arrows, do all the things, finish the school.
Apparently we don't have enough arrows.
Oh, well, they get lost. It's funny that we both have kids doing archery, but they get lost. And then we still have one. We assume it flew over to the neighbors. No one knows. Like, no one has found it, and it's been lost for a long time. So, and they're expensive.
I know. And normally I'd be like, whatever, we don't need it today, but we have 4-H archery tonight and 3 of our kids are doing it. And so I was like, man, but oh well.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to go get those arrows. I know. The things that are filling our lives. I know. Funny things. Well, okay. I got to go bake my bread. I got to go be somewhere. Anyway, we got stuff to do. Okay. So fun. Thank you, friend. And hopefully this was encouraging to people.
Yes.
Go do things for the Lord and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Or why am I not doing this? I think that's more often it is. People are like, can't sign up for that meal train, can't help with that ministry, can't do this, can't do this. And it's like, but why? What do you have going on? Anyway.
Yeah. 8 hours of sleep.
I got to do 8 hours. I got to go get my nails done. I got, all the things. I don't know either of those things, but anyway. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, friend. And we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Bye.